the focus is a super powerful state to be in, and you can achieve a lot. I mean, people have achieved incredible things, not only in the climbing world, but that intense level of focus that it takes to climb solo is something that was super valuable for me to have learned. I would maybe do a little bit of research before you start doing any kind of breath work. I think you should know a little bit about what you're doing and just explore it gently before you start going do that 2 breaths a minute, because potentially it could be
It's such a good meditation. I passed out. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes from body awareness, I think, and that mind-body connection and expanding that. And that comes from, honestly, it comes from training and doing slow, deliberate movement often, and recognizing that you do have a relationship between your mind and your body, and it's something that doesn't just come magically. It has to be developed just like anything.
Any bad habits you're working on right now that you want to share with the audience? We can help you along.
Probably none that I should disclose on a public forum. Actually, you know what? All right, let's do this.
10 questions for the focused, fit, and fulfilled. This is 10 Qs.
So, hey everyone, it's Michelle from Stoneledge. I am beyond excited to introduce today's guest, Chase Tucker. There's a couple of reasons why I'm really super excited. First of all, just a little bit of a backstory. Chase is originally from Tasmania, and he began his journey into fitness as really a hiker and a mountaineer.
Where are we? Tosa del Pas del Yadras. Okay.
And then he started to help people. He discovered that there were a ton of people that were going into the mountains, whether to backpack, hike, or even just climb mountains, and they weren't prepared. And so he's created an entire business around helping people prepare their mind, their body, and even their gear so that they're not going out there and getting injured or even having a bad experience. So that's how I discovered Chase. As many of you know, last year I was planning a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. I switched that up a little bit to really dig into Stoneledge Enrichment. But as I was preparing, I knew I wasn't ready. I'm 56 years old. I wasn't flexible. I was definitely not ready for a long distance hike. So I started watching Chase's videos. His YouTube channel, by the way, is extraordinary. Lots of great content there. And through those videos, I actually created a relationship with Chase. I utilized his programs initially, and then I actually did some personal coaching with him. So I want to just share all of that because this guy is the real deal. He's a true gem, and he's also one of the most thoughtful people that I've ever experienced. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Chase Tucker.
That is easily the best intro I've ever had. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for inviting me back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the reason why Chase said inviting him back is if you look on the website, we have done an interview before when it was in complete written format. And I'm going to put the link in the description below because great responses to those questions as well. But Chase, even though that was a good intro, there's no one that can introduce you like you can. So tell us a little bit more about your backstory. How did you get into hiking and mountaineering and fitness in general?
I began this part of my journey about 2012, and I was working for a multinational in a sales job, and I found that I was sitting in the car driving around. The company that I worked for was called Cedar Summit, and they're a huge hiking outdoor equipment company. And despite working for that kind of company, I ended up not being able to get out that much. I wanted to be outside going hiking. So there was a moment where I realized, having spent a lot of time sitting in the car and working, that my body was suffering. And I figured that was a common problem. I wanted a lifestyle change. So I decided to start my own business, which I did in the very beginning of 2013. It's a pretty quick change around.
Yeah.
we began in Brisbane, Australia, and I worked with people face to face for, I want to say 5.5, 6 years. The whole time I was doing little bits and pieces online and coaching people online as well. And I was creating videos to send to my clients because I wanted to give them a really clear understanding of the nuances with each exercise that I was prescribing. And it kind of happened by accident that I just left those videos on YouTube public and people started watching them.
Nice.
And next thing I know, I'm a YouTuber. So that's my story in a nutshell, basically.
Next thing you know, people like me are reaching out and saying, hey, I need more. Can you coach me individually?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Really
I've been at it for about almost a decade, about 8 or 9 years now. So that's gone really quick.
Your experience definitely comes through in just not only the quality of the editing, but the quality of the instruction. I mean, I can watch one of your videos and really understand how to do a movement from a quality perspective and then work on the quantity. But I want to encourage all of you to not only check out his channel for the workouts, but you actually do a lot of really cool experiences yourself. You've hiked the Pyrenees, have you summited Everest? Tell us a little bit about some of the big hikes that you've done in your past.
Being from Australia, we don't have a lot of mountains. So I have been to the Himalayas a number of times. I haven't climbed Everest, but I've climbed 6,000 meter peaks mainly. And I don't know what that is in feet, 20,000 something feet. So they're nothing that you would need supplemental oxygen for, but they're certainly an experience and really challenging. Outside of that, I would pretty regularly go to New Zealand. We have beautiful mountains there. And now I'm living in Spain and we have incredible mountains here too. I have been to the States, but that was like a long time ago. I would love to get back.
Yep. Well, hopefully we can get some of this craziness behind us. You can come hike some of the beautiful trails and mountains that are over here.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I would love to.
For sure. All right. So as you know, the format is we're going to take you through 10 questions. Our focus is really on fitness and mindset and fulfillment. And so all of the questions are skewed in that direction. But we kick this off talking about YouTube, and on YouTube, you'll see that even YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, any of those platforms, there's a ton of content around what we call the best morning routine, or, do these things in the morning for your perfect life, that type of thing. So I know that there's a lot of value in waking up in the morning and having a set routine to really start that positive ripple effect for the day. So Chase, what is your morning routine and what's the impact on, your overall happiness and productivity?
My routine is fairly simple. I drink water straight away, no matter what. I try and drink a liter. Then I'll usually walk outside, sit on the floor, and there's no specific order to this, but just kind of how I'm feeling on the day will depend. I'll do movement, meditation, journaling. They're the main three. And then from there, it can change into anything depending on whether I have to go straight into work or if I've got a bit more time. That movement aspect is usually like a set routine that I do. And it's a video, you can watch it on YouTube, called the Daily Movement Practice for Hikers. Even though it's about hiking, it's more about undoing sitting, because believe it or not, a lot of what I do is sitting in a chair, editing, writing scripts for videos and planning and doing all the business stuff. So I still have to do a lot of this stuff to undo the sitting that I do every day. But the main thing is, drinking water, trying to keep up, trying to get up at a regular time, and then writing not too much, it's literally 5 minutes of just jotting down some notes in my journal. And again, the meditation time will depend anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So journaling, meditating, making sure you get your water, and then moving, getting the body stretched out.
Yeah, and then coffee. So
coffee.
But I think the key to this is knowing how you motivate yourself. So coffee is something that I will have after that routine is done most of the time. If I'm cheating, I'll take it before. But I try and use that as a motivation tool to kind of get through these 3 things you got to do. Then you can have some coffee.
Yeah.
and then
Like a reward.
settle down and start the day and everything.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's all about that reward habit loop.
I love it. I love it. I know I wake up in the morning, I drink what I call my greens, but it's amazing grass green superfood. And it has caffeine from matcha tea.
Yeah.
And
Would you
so,
believe I just bought it? I bought it last week.
nice.
And
It
I
is
love it. It's really good.
amazing. Really good.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to have to switch it up a little bit because I wake up and that's my reward for just, I'm a morning person. So I don't need a prompt to wake up. I just wake up when I wake up. But I get it straight away. But I kind of like where you're going with it. Hey, let's do these other things first. And then the reward is the amazing grass green superfood, as opposed to like that gets me up and going. And then I do those other things.
Yeah. I just bought it for my through hike because I figured I'm not going to be able to eat vegetables. And it wasn't a problem last year, but I just want to try something new. So I thought I'll bring a green powder. It's something I've done in the past, like in the Himalayas. It's really hard to get green leafy vegetables. So back then it didn't taste so good, but these ones taste a lot better.
Yeah.
I got the berry flavored one, and it's really nice. I was concerned that that still tastes like 100% spirulina, but it's really nice.
Yeah, I love it. I'm glad. And you got the amazing grass brand, right?
Yeah, solid plug there.
Yeah, I was going to say they are not sponsoring me currently. But if you see either one of us, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
I discovered them when I was an officer on board the Disney ships, and I do like coffee, but there's only so much you can drink, and I just needed another source of clean caffeine, and someone introduced me to it, and I think I've had it every day for the last 7.5 years.
Yeah. Before we get too off track, I'm going to mention this really quickly because I love it. Lion's mane mushroom powder. I mix that with coffee.
Yeah.
And it's really stimulating for the brain. And if you need to be creative, if you need to think quickly, and you barely taste it, you just mix it with coffee. But you can also, I just have it with water because, like you said, you can have too many coffees for sure.
So just to wrap,
I'll have one of those in the afternoon for a bit of a pep up.
And what I would consider a great synchronicity, and to wrap up this point, my second green of the day right here is amazing grass green superfood with lion's mane. So it's got a couple of different mushroom powders in there, and it's probably why I'm super chatty right now, but it's just it's not one of those caffeine highs that crashes you, and so it just adds a lot of clarity up here. So we are a line chase. This is
we're all buzzed up on these mushrooms over here, guys.
Yeah. I love it. Love it. All right. So you mentioned as part of your morning routine that you meditate. Can you tell us a little bit more about that practice? How do you meditate? Do you use mantras? Do you just listen to your breath? Is there a certain style that you prefer?
The go-to kind of lazy brain option that I often implement is Headspace.
Okay.
So
great app.
That's really nice because you can just, if you've got 5 minutes, you do 5 minutes, and you can just scale it up. And there's all sorts of different courses within it, which are great because it encourages you to tick, days off in a row, and it tells you what kind of streak you're on and everything. So that's where I would recommend people start. If I'm trying to prepare myself for something, or if I'm struggling with something, then it's usually breath work, and that would look like essentially trying to take as little breaths as possible each minute. So I try and get down to, usually start with maybe like 6 breaths a minute, and then try and get to 4, and then 2. So in for 15 seconds, out for 15 seconds, in for 15, out for 15. And that, you really have to focus on counting and the breathing, and that's it. And I'll usually do that for a couple of minutes, and then I can sort of come back and relax after that and do a normal kind of visualization, like a body scan or some sort of visualization drill. And these are all things I learned from Headspace or from other kind of practitioners or friends along the way, but mainly from Headspace.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anyone that tries to take fewer breaths, but what I'm hearing you say is it's almost like a box breathing technique, but the segments get longer and longer. So instead of like 4 in, hold at the top for 4, 4 out, hold at the bottom for 4. You try to stretch that, stretch that, stretch that. So it's more 10 to 15 range. And then doing the math, then it is only a couple of breaths every single minute.
Yeah. I should say that that's actually just something I came up with on my own. As far as I know, like no one taught me that. I just started doing it. But I find it useful. I would maybe do a little bit of research before you start doing any kind of breath work. I think you should know a little bit about what you're doing and just explore it gently before you start going do that 2 breaths a minute, because potentially it could be
it's such a good meditation. I passed out. It was awesome.
Yeah. Just completely depleted myself of oxygen. It's not a problem.
It was a good reboot. No, I think that's really wise. So, all right, very cool. So just my experience with you, Chase, is that you're just this really calm, even-keeled guy. Even your voice is just even-keeled. You've got a great sense of humor. With that said, I feel like probably most human beings have moments where their head is just in chaos, or the internal dialogue is not where they want it to be. So when that happens to you, what do you do? How do you calm the storm when your head is in chaos?
That's a really good question. I think it's a matter of, over time, teaching yourself to recognize those crucial moments where you're about to lose it.
Yeah.
And just gaining some control in that moment. I'm not entirely sure how I got to this position, and I still lose it. Like, I'll fly off the handle, of course, but I think less frequently over time as I've grown older and as I've maintained a relatively consistent lifestyle of being interested in these sorts of things. But I'm really not sure if there's any one way that I've learned to control that. I think it's just practice, perhaps.
So that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned something I think is really integral to the conversation, is that you recognize it early. I mean, you see yourself, or you can feel yourself kind of going into a swirl moment. What is it about that moment that makes you feel that this is a kind of a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, or a path that I don't want to pursue?
I think I feel it in my body, like I feel it in my chest, upper shoulders, like I physically feel it. It's like tension. And perhaps there's some kind of trigger now where I can most of the time just feel that and be like, okay, I'm about to say something I'm going to regret, or I'm about to do something that I'm going to have to make up for later on down the track. So yeah, it comes from body awareness, I think, and that mind-body connection and expanding that. And that comes from, honestly, it comes from training and doing slow, deliberate movement often, and recognizing that you do have a relationship between your mind and your body, and it's something that doesn't just come magically. It has to be developed, just like anything.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Have you ever heard of or read Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Oh yeah, his name is really familiar, but I don't think I've read like an entire book of his.
He's a neuroscientist, and I won't be able to do this justice, but he talks quite a bit about the mind-body connection. But one of the things I find most interesting, I'll just cover very quickly, is that when you think a thought, there's a biochemical response in the body. And so if you think a happy thought, that's why your body feels happy. If you think an angry thought, and so on and so on. But what he proposes is that the body actually becomes addicted to repetitive thoughts. And so if you repeatedly think about regret or anger or even anything negative, even though you don't want to think about it, your body's kind of expecting that chemical to come down. And so I love what you said, because I think that you've trained your body, or your mind, or your body, however it was, whoever's leading that charge, can feel the difference from a chemical perspective when you start to think something that's not going to serve you, or is going to take you down a path you don't want to go. So your body's helping you recognize that, and then sending messages back up to the brain to say, all right, we have a choice here. We can either go down this path and fly off the handle, or we can stop it now and find something that feels a little bit better.
Absolutely. You're going to have to send me the book, because I think it's just something, the name that I've heard being mentioned a lot of a lot of other times from reading those kinds of materials.
Yeah,
that's a nice little nugget for the
it is
the video for sure.
So yeah, I'll send you some links, and I'll put the link in into the video as well, because not only does he tell you what's going on, but he helps you reverse it, because it's not just about the recognition, but it's about solving the issue in the first place. So thank you for letting me go down that path. Speaking of books, one of the books that you recommended the last time we met was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which I just devoured. In fact, I would read it at night and I almost didn't want to fall asleep because I was just so immersed in his story. I also started reading Lord of the Rings, by the way. And
oh yeah.
Brilliant writing. I can see why those were two of the books that you recommended. But going back to Viktor Frankl, one of the quotes that he has in there that's very often quoted is, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." So at Stoneledge, we talk a lot about what we call the big why, the real deeply rooted reason for why you do what you do. So Chase, what is your big why, and why do you do what you do?
The overall mission of my business is to get people to pay more attention to nature.
Okay.
That comes in the form of exercise and mindfulness and gear preparation. But the idea being that if you're worried about your gear, or if you're worried about what's going on at home, or if your knee's hurting and you're not going to be present when you're out in the mountains, I really want people to be in the best possible mind frame and situation to be able to fully absorb an experience like that, because they are the mountains are a really powerful place to be, but they can also be pretty you can easily suffer through your time there, and you can have one negative experience and never want to set foot near a tree again. So the idea is that I want to get people to pay more attention to nature, what's happening around us currently with our environment and our governments and their attitudes towards what's happening in the climate. Those things spur me on every day, because I figure that I can make a hiker out of just about anyone. I just need to get the right information to someone and put them in the perfect situation. Like, anyone can enjoy hiking. You don't have to hate it. But people often end up disliking it because of a bad experience, and there's so many reasons why that can happen. So my goal is to get people to pay attention to and enjoy their experiences in the outdoors, basically.
Yeah, I love that, because you're right, and it goes back to your tagline for your business of preparing your mind, your body, and your gear. Because if you don't, there's obviously a potential for injury, but I didn't even think of it this way until you said it. There's also that potential that you just don't want to do it anymore because it's not pleasant and you're not enjoying it, and it's a bad experience. If you don't mind me ask you just one follow-up question. Why does that drive you? It sounds like you've just got this enormous love for nature as an individual, but why are you driven to share that passion and share that almost personal ownership for our earth, this world, and nature in general with so many others?
I think if you asked me 10 years ago, the answer would have been, well, it's just the right thing to do. But now I'm just compelled on a daily basis to keep doing it. I still think it's the right thing to do. I mean, obviously there's people doing far more impactful things on that topic. But for now, I mean, what else am I going to do? Like, I really work hard not to get dragged down by how serious the situation is that we're in, and I don't want to get buried in negativity. And the only thing I can do is keep doing what I'm doing, stay positive, keep spreading the message, and that's it. So it's just, I'm compelled to do it.
Yeah. I love that. Jason, I thought that was a really beautiful answer. And I would argue, though, that yes, there are big organizations, huge nonprofits, even governments that are helping to protect the planet, to protect nature, to do all these things. But what I would argue is people like you that impact one hiker at a time, one group at a time, change their philosophy in terms of just getting out there and not only becoming active, but enjoying and protecting the environment in which they're experiencing. I really think that that ripple effect is just as powerful as a $100 million nonprofit that's out there with a great advertising budget and just sharing the message with millions. So I think you're doing a tremendous thing for the planet and for everyone that you serve.
Thank you. Still working hard on it. I'm constantly trying to find new ways of sneaking in these little messages without. I'm really cautious about overstepping my boundaries. Like, I'm not an environmental scientist, but at the same time, everyone has to be an environmental scientist a little bit, because we all live in this earth together. We all live in physical bodies on the face of this planet. So it's probably something we should all kind of spend a little bit more time learning.
Yeah, 100%.
So it is. I'm in Spain in the middle of summer and it's just so hot.
Oh, that's okay.
And I didn't want the noise of the fan in the background. So
yeah, I know. Same
here
thing.
in my little sauna.
I'm not quite in a sauna, but this my temporary office space here, I have a fan that usually goes, but I turned it off. So I'll need a little bit of a dab break. Probably here.
Very timely moment to talk about.
Yeah.
Global warming.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Good tie-in, Chase. Well done.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about habits, because I think it's pretty significant. In my experience, and this has been well documented by many, many authors, but in fact, I was even just reading Og Mandino recently, and he talked about habit change. But the best way to change a habit is to first specifically identify what it is that you want to change, then find a compelling replacement, because you can't leave a void or else all sorts of things are going to jump into that space. So find a compelling replacement habit and then engage in it repeatedly. Whether you're of the belief that you can change a habit in a day, or it takes 14 days or 28 days or whatever the thing is, it's the repetition that really helps it become a new habit. At Stoneledge, we call it habit change, ICE, and we try to help people change big and little habits so that they can live their best life. So with all of that set up, when you know you've got a habit that you want to change, what's your process for tackling that?
I pay attention to how I'm feeling, both when I succeed at not doing the thing that I'm trying to change. I pay attention to how I feel when I succeed, and I pay attention to how I feel when I don't succeed. And when I don't succeed, there's this kind of feeling of, I don't know, it's guilt, it's a low energy, kind of low vibration kind of feeling. And I sit there and think, well, you could be feeling good right now, but you just lost your self-control in that one split second. And now you're feeling guilty when you could be feeling great, because the opposite feeling, when you do succeed at something like that, when you pull a little bit of self-control and a little bit of power, you ride that high for a few hours, if not longer.
Absolutely.
So I really try and focus on those feelings and write down my journal. Like, I'm feeling way better because I didn't do X.
That's fantastic. So what I'm hearing you say is that is that kind of like an internal dialogue that's going on? If you give in or you didn't give in, you kind of have this little self-talk to say, Chase, that was awesome, man. I'm kicked ass today. Or, you know what? Yeah, you gave in, and just recognize how this feels right now, because we don't want to do this again. Is that kind of how it plays out in your head?
Yeah, I think it's more the second one. I'm not particularly good with positive self-talk. I think that's something I need to work on. And I think probably most people aren't, because it feels lame. to like a lot of everything in it, a lot of advice in this space comes down to affirmations and thinking positively and all the rest of it. I think people, when they're in the beginning phases of this, they're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to look in the mirror and say nice things about myself and look myself in the eye. Like,
Yeah.
it feels lame. No one wants to do that.
Right.
But you just have to start with something small. And that's why I like journaling, because it's just writing down a little bit, and it's like one sentence. And you can say the same thing every day. If you're feeling a bit lazy, you can just repeat the same thing every day. It's still going to have a positive effect on you.
Yeah. It sinks in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not much of a look in the mirror and tell myself, Michelle, you rock today. But I do journal. I journal every morning, and it really does. It gets me and I do sometimes remind myself, you know what, you've got this, and you're doing great, and this is going well. But you're right. It's more, I think it's more natural or habitual to think about the things that I would have done differently yesterday, or I would have changed, than to say, you know what, Michelle, you were awesome at these 3 things, and you did all of the chase workouts, and you got everything on your to-do list done. It's more like, all right, what would I have done a little bit different to get better results? And so I think it's either human nature, or maybe it's part and parcel with being just someone that's driven and wants to contribute.
Bit both, I imagine.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Any bad habits you're working on right now that you want to share with the audience? We can help you along.
Probably none that I should disclose on a public forum. Actually, you know what? All right, let's do this. So I've never smoked tobacco. I hate tobacco. I can't handle it. I'll just cough and cough and cough. But my partner, she's Norwegian, and in Norway they have something called snus, which is like, in America it's like dip.
Okay.
Tobacco, right? And I went to Norway and met all her family and all her friends, and she showed me this stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And the first one, I felt terrible. I took it out. I was like, I'm never having that again. A couple of beers later, I had another one, and it's way more addictive than cigarettes. And
Wow.
it goes directly into your bloodstream. And if you go to Norway and Sweden, you'll see people doing this constantly. Like, people have they have like 40 of these things a day.
Wow.
I'm not that bad, but I'll have like one a day probably, but it's still not something that I like having over my head. And last year when I did my through hike, I left it at home and I felt so much better. But I think it's like, I've never had like a proper like nicotine injection from smoking cigarettes. It's something that's really powerful. So that's something that I'm trying to drop. Yeah. And I think that's through learning of how powerful addiction is and how powerful nicotine can be. That's probably what taught me those earlier lessons that I was speaking about. So perhaps in a way it was good for me to go through that. But I would say it's not damaging to me now. It's far better than smoking a cigarette, but it is something that I'm not 100% happy with.
Okay. Well, it sounded like you said you're trying to eliminate it or decrease it. I have a friend. His name is Yoda. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he said there is no try. I'm going to misquote him. All the Star Wars fans out there are going to just slay me. But what is it? There's only do. There is no try.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'll post the quote right here as we're talking when AJ goes through editing, but there's no try, there's only do, or something like that. So
yeah.
Always with you what cannot be done. Hear you nothing that I say. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
I used to say that a lot, and people used to I used to get in arguments with people about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But he's
well,
right.
yeah,
There's
he's,
only
I actually
yeah,
try
there's
to,
no try, there's only do or do not, something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. And
Yeah.
I try to, and there I use the word, but I try to
Mm,
eliminate the word try from my
yeah.
vocabulary because it's either I'm going to commit to doing it or I'm not. So, is
Yeah.
it fair that next time we do a follow-up interview with you, Chase Tucker, that you'll give us an update
Yeah. Okay.
on your attempt to change this habit?
Okay. I'll try. I'll
All
do it. I'll do it for you.
right, amazing, pretty cool. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
So the next question has to do with exercise and fitness. And I want to just share with our viewers that right now I am going through a new program that Chase has called, and I hope I don't misquote it, but it's Elements the Long Game. And it's, instead of just doing like a 28-day program, it's a subscription model. And so you can go on and on and on, because you can get more fit 28 days, but you don't stop there. You don't become flexible and then you're flexible for the rest of your life kind of deal. But I can share with you that going through this program, and I'm doing a lot of additional workouts as well, but I'm 56 years old and I am more flexible right now, I think, than I've been in decades, maybe since my early 20s. I can do like a full body weight squat, even with a barbell on my back, all the way down to where my butt is touching the floor. I mean, I've just gotten way better hip flexibility and mobility, and my knees feel great, knock on wood. And that's through, some of the just incredible stretching and workout exercises that you have. So I'm saying that partially to plug Chase, but also just to recognize how important consistency is, and that even at 56 you can get in shape and flexible again. So all of this is leading up to the actual question. First of all, what do you do personally for your workouts right now? And then the second part of the question, and this is even more important, I think, is what do you tell somebody that at this point in their life, they're not fit and they're not flexible and they just feel stuck, like they can't get anything generated in terms of momentum?
So the first part of the question, I would say, I mean, I do what you see in those videos. That's what I do every day. There's variations of that where because I'm always kind of pushing the boundaries, and I'm doing what I'm doing now. My supporters, my followers, my clients will be doing in 2 months, maybe, by the time I get the videos out. And that's the idea with long game, because I want continuation rather than just like, here's a program, go for your life for 10 weeks, then do nothing for however long after. Like I want to have a long-term impact on people. I want to impact as many people as possible. And there is a huge delineation between fitness and what is true health. And I think, getting to the second part of your question, if you feel like you are never going to be fit, that's because fitness doesn't exist. It's a mythical concept that's made up to sell you a single program or a dietary supplement or a gym membership or something. It's not real. You can be fit for mountain climbing, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be fit for powerlifting at the same time. You can be fit for marathon running. It doesn't mean you're going to be fit to be a ballet dancer.
Yeah.
There's movement, and what we do is a cloud. It is so vast and so varied, where we are the most capable movers on the planet. And what we call fitness or exercise is just this tiny little speck of water in this gigantic cloud. And we can do all sorts of different things. So sitting with the idea that you'll never be fit is a lie. What we need to pursue is health, and that happens slowly over time with a long-term perspective, and it takes routine and habits and all the rest of it. Nothing significant is going to change in a 6-week program or even a 10-week program. And I have these programs, and probably people would argue with me because they've got good results or whatever, but I'm talking about long-term improvements of health. I'm not talking about fitness. This is a completely different thing.
Well said. So
Want to be a bit rant.
what if someone's listening to this and um, they have just now spent the last couple of years, and I know 2020 was a transitional year for many people and not always in a positive way. When you think about health and when you think about, just the way your body's working and moving, what would you suggest to somebody that has fallen into that rut and right now they are just um, like they don't have any momentum? Where should they start to get closer to a healthier physical lifestyle?
The best thing I think to do is just start with one single exercise,
Hmm.
and that can be different for everyone. But at the most basic level, like if I was talking to someone who was uh, 70 years old and had trouble walking and they were really in bad shape health wise, I would ask that person if they can get up to a standing position from lying on the ground.
Hmm.
Like, cool, can you do that? That's a really important movement pattern.
Hmm.
So that's one of the most important things we need. When you look at populations over 70 and the amount of falls they have because of,
Right.
then we're looking at broken hips and
Yeah.
broken bones. It's really important that we can get up off the ground. So I would say start with lie on the ground, get up any way you can into a standing position. Do that 3 to 5 times.
Hmm.
Tick the box.
Yeah.
Be happy with yourself.
Hmm.
Next day, do it 6 times. When you get to say 5 days in a row, maybe we can add an extra movement. Perhaps we can do a partial squat, or perhaps we can do any other basic movement from my daily movement routine for hikers. Any of those movements you can start with. Once you've got 2 movements that you've been doing for 2 weeks, and then you add a 3rd movement, you add a 4th movement.
Brilliant.
So going with. So it's momentum, and this is Newton's first principle. An object in motion will stay in motion,
Yeah.
unless acted on by another force. An object that is at rest will stay at rest.
Yeah.
So it's this. What's great about journals is physically ticking things off, and I think one of the important aspects of habit change is some kind of physical anchoring to get that reward system happening. Maybe it's tick the box, have your morning coffee, move on with your day. That's all you need to do for exercise for today.
Yeah. I love where you're going with this because you're absolutely right. If you think about, all right, to get momentum going, I need to do complete workouts, or I need to, join a gym and show up every day. And it just feels like monumental to be able to do that. What you're saying, or what I hear you saying, is just do one thing. Do that one thing, do it well, do it again tomorrow, do it again the next day. Next thing you know, the ball is moving forward, and it's a lot easier to add to it once you just get that ball moving in the first place. So I think that's brilliant.
Brilliantly simple.
Yeah, it is.
Really
And
simple.
it works.
Yeah, and you will fall off the bandwagon 100%. I'll guarantee you will fall off 10 times in a year. But then you get back up again and keep doing it. What's the other option?
And then you know how to get momentum again because you've done it. If you've gone from 0 to moving and you've done a consistent stretch of that, then you'll always know how to start. It's like, all right, I need to go back to the basics and then let's get things going again. It's really strong. So we're going to switch gears a little bit from movement to nourishment. Tell us, Chase, a little bit about your relationship with food. I know in our first interview that we've got in the written form, we talked about, I think you said you were a flexitarian in terms of your approach to food, but tell me a little bit about your relationship with food. In other words, do you see food as fuel, or is it something that provides a state change or makes you happy, or kind of a more emotional relationship?
I have to admit that I don't do a lot of the food preparation in my relationship. That's the first thing I want to say. My partner food's like a really important part of her life.
Mhm.
and she gets a lot of joy from cooking. And I'll cook occasionally, but not very often. I'm the one who does the cleaning. Having said that, food is very important to me because I've always kind of viewed it from this like sciencey mindset of it is fuel,
Mhm.
and it's what enables me to go out and do what I do. So that's why I like paying attention to it. But on the other hand, I live in Spain, and the food quality and the the culture around here for food is top notch.
Mhm.
So, of course, there's so much enjoyment that I get
Yeah.
from it. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. You know, and when I travel, I love to experience local cuisine, because A, it's part of the experience, and B, it really does bring me joy when I'm enjoying something that's well made, or, you know, there's passion behind
Hmm.
the preparation. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. What would you, again, just thinking about one of our first conversations in terms of wanting to help people just in general, um, any thoughts or tips that you would give someone that does struggle with their relationship with food, whether it's I eat something and I immediately feel guilty, or maybe I eat to change my state of boredom or anger or depression or whatever it is? Do you have anything that that might give someone momentum in terms of being able to change that?
I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here, but again, I think it comes down to noticing how you're feeling after eating certain things. And it's hard for me to speak about this topic because I've never been overweight. I'm blessed with a fast metabolism, and so I must say that I have super limited experience in this topic. But when I have been in situations like that, I will tend to notice when I haven't been eating like a good quality food, or if I have, been eating too much or even drinking too much, whatever. Just comes back to that fear, recognizing like, I usually have a lot more energy to this, and I usually feel a lot better than this, and what do I have to change?
Yeah, fair enough. That's very fair. All right. A question I've asked you before, but I loved your answer, so I decided to ask you again. What tips would you offer for getting a peaceful, soul satisfying night of sleep?
Let's see if I can remember exactly what I said, because I think last time I nailed this. The first thing is not looking at your phone for like the last half an hour before you go to sleep. Try and stay phoneless.
Mhm.
Just because of, there's so many reasons, because you're getting so much stimulation, not only from just direct light.
Mm.
We need less stimulation mentally. We need less stimulation from light. We need to kick that circadian rhythm in.
Mhm.
I mean, generally, like doing what I do, exercising, and whether it's running or if it's just walking or training, usually sets me up for a pretty good night's sleep
Mhm.
anyhow. But there's times when I have, my mind is racing and I can't get to sleep. What I would generally do is another like breathing pattern,
Mm.
which is 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out.
Okay.
And I think they call that whiskey breath. There's a really good TED talk about this, but it's essentially something to calm your nervous system. Usually knocks me out pretty well.
Whiskey breath.
Yeah, whiskey breath. I'll send you the link to the video.
Yeah,
Super
please do.
fascinating TED talk. Yeah.
I was just about to write it down, and then I remembered. It's like, oh, we're recording this. Okay, I don't want to forget that. I tend to sleep really well at night. I love to sleep. I'm a early to bed, early to rise kind of girl, but I just usually just dim the lights, calm everything down, turn the phone off. In fact, I have my phone already set up to where it automatically at certain point at night, and I can't remember what that setting is, but basically it'll kill all the calls. It won't let anything come through.
Hmm.
And then I read a little bit, and I just drift off, and then wake up. I wake up without an alarm unless I'm traveling somewhere. So it works really well.
Reading also knocks me out properly as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I'm reading Lord of the Rings. I read both Hobbit books first because I wanted to make sure I got the story in order. And now I'm on the two towers, I think.
Nice.
But it's just such a nice adventure. So I like reading novels when I'm falling asleep. All right. So the only other question that we're going to repeat from the first interview, and again, in part because I loved your response, even though you don't have to repeat the response, it could be a different answer this time. But Chase, who in this life has had the biggest impact on your spiritual journey?
I'm going to tell a different story because I thought about that, and I think I was just kind of caught on the back foot with that question, because it's a huge question. And now that I've had a little bit more time to think about it, I've got a different answer. For anyone that wants to read the first answer, that will be up on the blog, I guess, still.
Yep, it'll be right there.
A friend of mine, his name was Shannon Marco, and we met randomly on Couchsurfing, which is like a hosting platform for travelers where people just invite random strangers into their home. I stayed with him for a few days. He lived in this beautiful location called Kaikoura in the South Island of New Zealand. And he taught, I feel like, looking back on it now, I feel like he taught me everything about life. He, at the time, was not following a strict diet, but he was going out hunting, fishing. He was growing a lot of his own vegetables. He was making his own like chili chocolate, and he cooked me wonderful meals. And we just formed a really close relationship in these like 2 or 3 days. A couple of years later, I went back to see him again, and he said, "Do you want to come climbing?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool, but I don't have any of my rock climbing gear. Actually, I've just got, I was over ice climbing in New Zealand, so this is all I have." And he's like, "No, don't worry, we won't need any of that. And we're going to go free soloing." And I was like,
Whoa.
"Oh, okay. Have you got some shoes, like a spare pair of shoes for me? We could just do a little bit," because I've done bits and pieces of it before. But he was like, "Okay, we're gonna get some height on this one, and this is a perfect place for it." So he takes me to this place just outside of Christchurch in the South Island of New Zealand. And if you could imagine like the shape of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, how it sort of arcs from one side to the other with a high section in the middle. We started on the right-hand side, and he just said, "Just climb this 2-meter section, and you can walk around from off the top. There's a big grassy paddock on the top. Just climb this, it's super easy." I'd been climbing for years at this stage, and it was fine. And he said, "Okay, let's go. Step a little bit closer to the middle and just breathe and calm down and think about your placements, and don't climb higher than you are confident coming down. So anything you climb up, you have to be 100% sure that you can down climb it." I was like, "Okay, no worries." An hour or so later, we get to the middle of this crag, and I find myself crawled into a small cave about halfway up the cliff, which at this stage is probably not super high off the ground, maybe 20 feet, 30 feet off the ground. Something I could easily down climb, but I was just sitting in this cave, and he just climbs up past me, and he said, "Just focus on this and this only, and continue climbing." And I sat there for a minute or two, and then I listened to what he said, and I kept climbing. What I learned from that is the focus is a super powerful state to be in, and you can achieve a lot. I mean, people have achieved incredible things, not only in the climbing world, but that intense level of focus that it takes to climb solo is something that was super valuable for me to have learned. I don't climb solo anymore. The reason why is because Shannon's no longer alive, and I've also lost friends from certain similar kind of situations. So it's a life lesson. But when Shannon died, he was really the first person in my life that I was really, really close to. And I'd never really thought too much about what happens after we die. But having this, now that he's gone, it reminds me whenever I think of him that something's going to happen after this. We don't know what it is,
Absolutely.
but for sure something's there. So, I mean, when we talk about spirituality, that for me, that feels like the essence of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing the best that you can do in this life now, whether it's going to help you prepare for the next one, if that's a thing, or preparing us for whatever is after this human experience that we're having. That's about as far as I've got for spirituality. I'm not a highly spiritual person, despite the man bun.
Like the signature of the spiritual person is the man.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it, but I'm just it sparked a thought in my head, so I'm just going to ask it. Have you ever experienced Shannon after he passed? Because you said he when did he pass?
May 2008.
Okay. Have you had any like just weird moments, or just the only way to ask it is, do you feel like you've experienced his presence since he's passed?
Pretty much every time I go climbing, he pops into my head.
Mm.
And whether I know it, whether I kind of choose to think about him or not,
Yeah.
I end up thinking about him.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been one, maybe I'll get this one day, but there hasn't been one situation where I'm sitting on a top of a mountain by myself and I really feel him. I would love that. That would be such an amazing experience, but honestly, that hasn't happened.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, someday, because I definitely believe it's possible. And I've had some experiences I won't go into here, but just that can only be explained by the unexplainable, as simple as that sounds. So, but we'll get into that at some other point. But just before we move on to the next question, I think this is the final question actually. Can you just talk a little bit about what free solo is? Because I think a lot of people know what it is because of the incredible movie Free Solo with Alex Honnold, which gives me goosebumps just thinking. I literally have goosebumps right now thinking about that movie. But can you just describe what free solo climbing is for anyone that has not experienced that before?
Free solo climbing is more or less what it sounds like. It's climbing up a sheer face of rock, usually, without the aid of either a rope or any kind of equipment for safety. So you're entirely relying on your own body to go up and or down. There's a few other variations, like you can do it with a parachute if you're a base jumper. I haven't done that. I have no interest in doing that after my experiences.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yep. Thank you for that. Occasionally I will free solo up a flight of stairs or maybe a ladder, but never on a sheer rock face. So that's
I wouldn't recommend
impressive.
it.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So last question. And again, it has a lot to do with just the 10Q series. We want to try to inspire people and help them kind of break through, some of the noise and some of the ruts and some of the patterns that they find themselves in. So what advice would you have for someone that is struggling to unlock personal strength, health, or even joy?
Ooh. I would say create a space that's yours. Whether it's a corner in the house or if you're lucky enough to have like a terrace in your apartment, maybe have a backyard, that's even perfect. I guess what I'm trying to say is create like a shrine or an area that's really protected,
Okay.
that you always have there. This is a concept, and keep it tidy. Like keep it arranged and try and keep it as clean and as sacred as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then the time that you spend there is the most important thing to you, and anything else that happens outside of that space can wait till later. And just really prioritize whatever you like to do in that space, whether it's like reading or journaling, meditating, anything that doesn't involve being on your phone.
Yeah.
Like keep it a phone free zone, like keep the vibes really high and really good in this space. For me, I have like a little terrace in the outside area. And actually one of the things that I do most mornings before, I'll have a glass of water and then I'll prepare my temple, if you want to call it that, which is me just getting a broom and it's sweeping. So clean the temple. So like get the space ready, take away the distractions,
Yeah.
and enjoy yourself for 5 or 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And good things will come from that. When we have chaos everywhere, that's fine. Like if you look around my house right now, it's complete chaos, but I've got my temple. And I think that's the best piece of advice I can give someone who's really struggling, because that gives you, it's like a safe space basically, that we can be in and grow from.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love even just the metaphor of sweeping the space to prepare it for that, those minutes that you're going to spend in it, because it's almost like clearing the clutter, calming the chaos, and saying, okay, this space right now. And when I say space, what I'm also hearing you say is the space is not just the physical space, that's part of it, but it's also, this is my mental space, this period of time, this little area right here, this is mine. This is how I'm going to start my day. This is how I'm going to basically generate the ripple effect that I'm looking for, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally. I think that's absolutely brilliant piece of advice.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good too. That was straight from the top of my dome.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. You gotta get some good stuff.
I didn't think about it for a good couple of seconds.
Yeah, that was really good, really strong. And it's something that every single person can do and can do immediately. It's not, all right, we'll go out and purchase this or buy that or build this. It's literally find your little space and organize it and get it ready for your sacred time. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. I think if we're missing, well, we're missing a lot of things in Western culture, but I think part of our problem, even though I'm not a particularly spiritual person, is that we don't necessarily have a lot of good, I don't know, leadership, or whether it's structure for us to have spirituality in our life. And I'm not talking about religion. That will be helpful for some people, but if you're not religious, if you've been disenfranchised by everything, then we still have spirituality on the table.
Yeah.
And you can make it whatever you want. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, agreed. And it's been a huge game changer for me, just connecting more often and finding myself in that space more often. And it's certainly generated a lot of peace in my life. So I think it is very sound advice, no matter how you take it or what path you choose to get to your own version of spirituality. I think it's a really critical part of just being healthy overall.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, Chase, I always enjoy our conversations. The time flies whenever we're chatting. So we're going to wrap it up now. Chase, if you can hang on for just a few more minutes.
Absolutely.
But for those of you that have watched this incredible interview with this wonderful man, thank you for being here. We're going to post Chase's links in the section below, but I know that he's got an incredible YouTube channel. And what's your how do they find you on YouTube, Chase?
Just type in Chase Mountains.
Chase Mountains, perfect.
You'll find
and
me.
Then you also have Instagram, and on Instagram you are at
Chase_Mountains.
Chase_Mountains. Perfect.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of really inspirational information out there, so please check him out. And thank you for watching this episode of 10 Questions for the Focused, Fit, and Fulfilled. I'm Michelle Baker, and I hope to see you really soon. Much love.